Hello and welcome to Happy History. Here we are with Chapter 1 Historiography Development in the West from the SSC Board History Curriculum. क्या आपको हिस्ट्री पसंद है? हिस्ट्री मुश्किल लगती है? वेल, ये वीडियो देखने के बाद आपको हिस्ट्री बहुत अच्छी लगेगी और बहुत ही आसान लगेगी. So let's get started with Chapter 1. Okay, get ready for the final category, notable scholars. Here we met some great, renowned scholars whose contribution in the development of historiography has been notable. यहाँ पे हम किससे मिलने वाले हैं? बहुत बड़े दिग्गजों से, बहुत बड़े scholars जिन्होंने historiography में बहुत ही ज़्यादा contribution किया है. उनका योगदान काफ़ी ज़्यादा है. So are you ready to meet all of them? Well, first on the list is René Descartes. You need to remember D for Descartes, his last name, and you'll be able to answer any question related to him. His famous book is Discourse on the Method. D for Discourse. और ये book में he has given a very important rule. And what is the rule? To doubt. You doubting that you heard doubt? He actually said doubt. शक करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. शक करोगे तो सच तक पहुँचोगे. So in case of history, anything that's given to you, you should not be just accepting it. You have to doubt it. क्या ये सच हो सकता है या क्या ये गलत है? शक बहुत ज़रूरी है. Okay, so never to accept anything for true till all grounds of doubt are excluded. जब तक सारे शक दूर नहीं हो जाते हैं, उसे सच करके मानना नहीं चाहिए. This means one needs to verify the reliability of historical documents by critically examining them. वो शक कैसे दूर करोगे? जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स है, हिस्टोरिकल डॉक्यूमेंट्स, उसको आपको क्रिटिकली एग्जामिन करना है, राइट? उसकी रिलायबिलिटी चेक करनी है. यू रिमेंबर फ्रॉम द फर्स्ट पार्ट 4 कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स. एविडेंसेस रिलायबल होने चाहिए, राइट? सो सेम थिंग इज हियर. यू हैव टू वेरीफाई द रिलायबिलिटी ऑफ द हिस्टोरिकल डॉक्यूमेंट्स. कैसा करोगे? उसका क्रिटिकल एग्जामिनेशन, उसको बराबर उसको देखोगे कि ये सही है कि नहीं. Okay, so he was the foremost scholar who insisted on this. So D for Descartes, D for discourse, D for doubt, and D for documents. Just remember letter D and this is done. Okay, by the way, D के पहले और बाद में कौन सा letter आता है? Well, I'm not testing your alphabetical knowledge. I'm sure you know your alphabets, right? Let me tell you why I'm asking this question. Letters C and E, right? C पहले आता है, E बाद में आता है. C for critical, E for examine, critically examining. And which means you have to critically examine the documents, D for documents. So this is very simple. René Descartes, remember D, D for discourse, D for doubt, D for documents, and D for Descartes, of course, his name. And that's how you can remember easily everything about this scholar. Are we clear? It's helping, right? It's simple, it's easy, it's happy history. Next scholar on the list is Voltaire, the founder of modern historiography. Today, while studying history, all aspects of human life are considered, and this idea was proposed by Voltaire, who is therefore known as the founder of modern historiography, right? तो आज जब हम हिस्ट्री पढ़ते हैं, हम इंसान के हर एक पहलू को कंसीडर करते हैं. Okay, every aspect of human life is considered. So you cannot study somebody or some event in isolation, right? You have to consider all the elements. वो कहाँ रहता है, कैसी हालत है, political situation क्या है, वहाँ की economy कैसी है. So one needs to consider all these aspects, and today we consider that. And this was proposed by Voltaire, and therefore is considered as the founder of modern historiography, right? Today we consider it's a modern historiography. So basically, put it simple, he was of the opinion that along with objective truth, okay, along with objective truth, chronology of historical events, one must also consider all aspects of human life, like social traditions, trade, economy, etc. Okay, as we just said, हर एक पहलू को, every aspect of human life, be it politics, be it social life, be it economy, trade, जो भी है हर एक element, हर एक पहलू को consider करना ज़रूरी है. Otherwise you are not getting the right history, because we don't live in isolation, in vacuum, right? All these elements, politics has a role in our life, society has a role in our life, right? So to consider all these aspects are very important, and that is what modern historiography is about, and Volatile is known as the founder of it. Now we have George Wilhelm Friedrich. He was German. He insisted on logical representation of historical reality, implying to have a timeline, which to him was indicative of progress. Right? So what did he insist on? कि जो events है उसको हमें logically represent करना है. We talked about the chronology, right? So this is what he's talking about, to represent them in a logical way that helps us understand how things were progressing with time. जो timeline होती है, this happened, after this happened, right? In the year this happened, this particular year ये हुआ, फिर उसके बाद ये हुआ. So which helps us to understand the progress. It indicates the progress. This is what he believed in, and this is what he insisted. So he says logical timeline. It's about progress that helps you understand the progress. He also believed that as new evidences are discovered, the presentation of the history would change, right? आज हमें कोई हिस्ट्री मालूम है, बट जब कुछ नए एविडेंसेस बाहर आएंगे तो शायद वो हिस्ट्री बदल जाएंगे, बिकॉज वो एविडेंसेस पहले हमारे पास नहीं थे. Based on what was available, history was written, and then somebody else studied it further, कुछ और बाहर आया तो वो हिस्ट्री बदल जाती है, राइट? सबूत ने कहानी में ट्विस्ट लाया. बोले तो new evidences changes the story, the history. It's simple, right? And it was his philosophy that many scholars believed that historical methods, despite being different from scientific methods, but not of lesser quality. Bravo, man. Okay? इनकी वजह से दूसरे हिस्टोरियंस ने भी मानना शुरू किया कि भले हिस्ट्री की जो मेथड्स है वो साइंटिफिक मेथड्स नहीं है हमारे पास, कि ऐसा ही है, ये मॉलिक्यूल को इसके साथ किया वो मॉलिक्यूल को तो यही बनेगा, ये केमिकल फार्मूला है या ये मैथमेटिकल फार्मूला है. सो एज वी सेड वी कैन नॉट रिक्रिएट हिस्ट्री, राइट? सो ही सेइंग डजंट मैटर, बट हिस्ट्री जो है उसकी जो मेथड है वो कोई लेस क्वालिटी की नहीं है, राइट? बिकॉज हियर आल्सो वी आर लुकिंग फॉर रिलायबल एविडेंस, वी आर डाउटिंग, we have right questions. So he insisted on this belief, and everybody believed that yes, history जो है उसकी जो methods है भले वो scientific methods से different है, but वो कोई कम नहीं है. Okay? I'm sure by now you must have felt that he would have had many lectures and articles to his credit. Yes, it is true. And this collection is published in a book titled Encyclopedia of Philosophical Science. ये जो बुक है एनसाइक्लोपीडिया ऑफ फिलोसॉफिकल साइंस, इसमें उनके जो लेक्चर्स है, उनके जो आर्टिकल्स है वो पब्लिश करने में आए हैं, राइट? जो अभी बातें की उसमें समझ में आ जाता है कि he must have done lots of lectures, he must have written lots of articles. So where is all this? So it is in this book, in this encyclopedia of philosophical science. One of his other books is Reason in History. Okay, so these are the two things that we have here. So now it's time to understand some of the terms that he proposed in relation to understanding the meaning of any event. Okay, so उन्होंने बहुत सारे terms यहाँ पे हमें propose किए हैं. So let's understand these terms. As you can see, we are going to talk about dialectic, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Well, what is the opposite of true? What is the opposite of good? Why am I asking you these questions? Because he suggested that for humans to understand the true nature of any event, एक इंसान को कोई भी इवेंट का सही मायनों में समझ चाहिए, okay, then human needs to understand the opposites, right? We always understand with opposites. That's very basic. Din, raat, good, bad, sukh, dukh, right? So he's saying that we need to know the opposites to understand the true nature of any event. So this is what dialectics is, which is defined as the method of analyzing which is based on opposites. So what is dialectic? A process of analysis which is based on opposites. How is it done? कैसे किया जाता है? First, a theory is proposed at the beginning called thesis. यानी कि वो शुरुआत में एक theory propose करने में आती है, and that theory is known as the thesis. Okay, so we start studying something, and at the beginning we say this is what could be the possibility. So we're proposing a theory over here, okay, and that is known as a thesis. Okay, and then after that, the opposite, the counter theory is proposed, which is contrary to the thesis, known as antithesis, right? Anti is opposite. जो पहले एक थियरी प्रपोज करते हैं और फिर उसी बाद उसके एग्जैक्ट ऑपोजिट थियरी प्रपोज करने में आता है. सो यू प्रपोज अ थीसिस एंड यू प्रपोज एंड देन यू हैव द एंटीथेसिस, राइट? डायलेक्टिक क्या बताया? ऑपोजिट्स. सो वी हैव thesis and antithesis, opposites, right? Then what happens? Both are thoroughly logically discussed and a new theory is proposed. Okay, so thesis और antithesis को पढ़ने में आता है, उसको डिस्कस करने में आता है, उसके बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन निकालने में आती है और हम एक नई thesis propose कर सकते हैं, which includes the gist of both the thesis and the antithesis. This process of arriving at the new thesis is called synthesis. Okay, so synthesis is basically the gist of thesis and antithesis. So synthesis is a process of arriving at the new thesis after a thorough logical discussion of both thesis and antithesis, right? So dialectic is about opposites. Therefore, we have thesis and antithesis, right? Thesis is the theory at the beginning, and antithesis is the contrary of this thesis. And then we study this both things, logical discussions होते हैं, उसकी तरह study करने में आती है और उसका gist बनाने में आता है, जिसको हम synthesis कहते हैं. So let's quickly recap it. Dialectic, it's a process of analysis which is based on opposites. Theory, a theory is proposed at the beginning. Antithesis, a theory contrary to the thesis. Synthesis is a process of arriving at the new theory after a thorough logical discussion of both thesis and antithesis, which includes gist of both. Easy? Yes. Happy history. Next, we have the fourth scholar here, Leopold von Ranke from Berlin University. He emphasized on critical method of historical research, gathering information through original documents, which should be examined with greatest care. Okay, so इन्होंने क्या बताया, किस चीज़ पे emphasize किया कि जो historical research है उसमें हमें जो मेथड है, जो क्रिटिकल मेथड होने चाहिए, जिसमें हम इंफॉर्मेशन सिर्फ और सिर्फ ओरिजिनल डॉक्यूमेंट्स से करेंगे, नो डुप्लीकेट्स. और ये जो एग्जामिनेशन है वो बहुत ही अच्छे से विद ग्रेटेस्ट केयर होना चाहिए, राइट? सो क्रिटिकल मेथड ऑफ हिस्टोरिकल रिसर्च, gathering information through original documents, examined with greatest care. and only originals, no duplicates. Okay, so this is what he emphasized on, and he believed that all these things would help us reach the historical truth. हिस्टोरिकल ट्रूथ, हमें हिस्ट्री की सच्चाई तक जाना है, राइट। सो उसके लिए ओरिजिनल डॉक्यूमेंट्स का होना बहुत ही ज़रूरी है। वी टॉकिंग अबाउट द प्राइमरी सोर्सेस, नॉट द सेकेंडरी सोर्सेस। And he also criticized imaginative narration of history. It's a bad thing. बहुत बार लोग एक अपना खुद का इमेजिनेशन उस हिस्ट्री में लगा देते हैं। ये हुआ फिर वो हुआ, बीच का कुछ नहीं पता चला तो क्या, हाँ शायद ये हुआ रहेगा, चलो ये डाल देते हैं। But then you are destroying the history. You are giving wrong information to people, right? So he criticized imaginative narration of history. It should be original. Documents original or history भी original होनी चाहिए. Okay? And his two famous books are The Theory and Practice of History, and the other one is The Secret of World History. And both of these books has the collection of his articles. उनके जो भी articles थे, वो जो regularly लिखते थे, those articles are compiled into these two books, The Theory and Practice of History, The Secret of World History. So that is it about this scholar. Next, we have is Karl Marx. He stated that history is about living people and not abstract ideas. Okay? History जो है वो लोगों के बारे में है. It's about the people who were living at that point in time. We're not talking something abstract. Okay? We're talking about some human beings, some people who lived at that point in time. और human beings के बारे में history लिखना, it's not that simple. There are so many elements involved, as we studied before also, right? You need to consider all the aspects of the human being while you write history about them. So he's saying, remember that history is not abstract ideas. They are about real human beings, real living human beings. Okay? He explained that the human relationships, which are shaped on one side by the fundamental needs of people. Okay? जो human relationships बनते हैं, उसका एक पहलू क्या है? What is one of the ways that it gets shaped is the fundamental needs of people. What are the needs of the people? We have various needs, right? So that plays a role in developing that relationship. And then he says on the other side, the ownership and nature of prevalent means of production to meet those needs. Okay, we all have needs, like for example, the need for water, the need for food, the need for clothing, need for shelter, right? So this needs, everybody has this, and that plays a role in developing or building a human relationship. And then he says कि ये जो needs को fulfill करने के लिए जो production है, जो वो own करता है, वो किसका है, कौन है, so the ownership and the nature of prevalent means of production also plays an important role, right? So there on one hand एक needs है हमारी, और on दूसरी hand वो needs को fulfill करने की जो ownership है, वो जो ताकत है, वो किसके पास है. So that also plays a human important role in human relationships. Okay? And further explains about this ownership idea. So that will help us understand what is it trying to say. So first, he says that these resources are not accessible equally to everyone in society. Okay? There is inequality, right? हर एक इंसान के पास हर एक चीज नहीं है. It's not equally distributed. There is inequality in the sense किसी के पास ज़्यादा है, किसी के पास कम है. And what that results in? The division of the society, right? We talk about the division in the society, which we know, right? We talk about lower class, middle class, upper class, जो भी अलग-अलग है. So this division is created because everybody does not have the same means for it, right? It's unequal. It's not equally distributed. So this leads to the division. और जब division होएगा तो क्या होगा? It leads to the struggle, class struggle. Okay, so this unequal distribution leads to division, which also in turn leads to the class struggle. I'm sure you know why class struggle, right? It's the class that owns the means of production. As you can see, it says exploits others economically, right? So those who have that means of production, they are going to exploit the ones who don't have it. And we have read a lot about all this in our own history, right? कैसे जो लैंडलॉर्ड्स होते थे वो गरीब फार्मर्स जो होते थे उनको एक्सप्लॉइट करते थे. आज की सोसाइटी में भी वैसा होता है. How poor people are get exploited by the rich people, right? Or whatever it is. I'm not against anybody, but those things exist. It does not mean that every rich person practices that, okay? But then those who have the means of production, they exploit those who don't have. So again, that leads to the human history, which is history of class struggle. So most of the time in history we talk about the class struggle. ये society में ये हुआ था, वो society में वो हुआ था, right? So this inequality leads to that. So this is what is talking about fundamental needs, and उसको fulfill करने की capacity किसके पास है? Everybody does not have it. It's unequal, okay? So it leads to division, it leads to class struggle, and those who have it, they exploit the others, and that also leads to class struggle. And that's why human history is history of class struggle. And his most famous book is Das Kapital. It's a treatise written by him. So this is all about Karl Marx. Next is analysis school. It's easy to remember as most of the points are covered in other sections. Okay, so ये फटाफट हो जाएगा और आपको आसानी से याद भी रह जाएगा क्योंकि इसके सारे points जो है ये हम लोग ने generally पहले इसके उसमें cover कर लिए हैं. So this was started by French historian in 20th century. French historian is of course France में शुरुआत हुई थी. According to it, history is not only about political events, kings, leaders, wars, politics, etc. Okay? So it is also about the climate, local people, trade, technology, class division. So all these elements are important, right? We talked about all the elements of human life. So history सिर्फ kings के बारे में या कोई wars के बारे में या कोई leaders के बारे में नहीं है. History is generally about human beings, and when we say human beings, we also mean the trade, the agriculture, the technology, the class divisions, the struggle, the communication, psychology, all the aspects of human life. So all this needs to be considered, right? So basically covering all aspects of human life, as all these factors impact the human life and are all interconnected. So this is the analysis school. In a way, lot of things coming from the other sections, okay? And here we are with feminist historiography, which means the restructuring of the history from the perspective of women, right? So it's not history is not only about the male section of the society, it is also about the women section also, right? So history को women के perspective से restructure करना. So it's looking history from the women's perspective also, restructuring history. So what does it mean? It means it also emphasizes to include the history of women, right? When you just have history of male, you are not having the whole history, you are having a part of the history. So you also need to have the history of the women, because we're talking about generally about a society, and a society consists of all of them, right? तो किसी एक के बारे में खाली men की हिस्ट्री या खाली women की हिस्ट्री हमें पूरा पर्सपेक्टिव नहीं देती है, वो हमें आधा आधा पर्सपेक्टिव देती है. तो हिस्ट्री के अंदर हमें विमेन का पर्सपेक्टिव भी लाना ज़रूरी है, यानी कि हमें विमेन की हिस्ट्री को भी इंक्लूड करना ज़रूरी है. ओके, सो इट therefore means to focus on various aspects of human's life, women's life, from their employment to their family life to the institutions that worked for them, राइट? और वो क्या काम करते थे, उनकी फैमिली की लाइफ कैसी होती थी, कोई इंस्टीट्यूशंस थे जो उनके लिए काम करते थे वगैरह वगैरह. So understanding all these elements of the women life is important too. Okay, so women begin to be portrayed as an independent social class in the historical writings after 1990. So it is both including women history and also rethinking of the male dominated perspective of history. Okay, दोनों आ जाता है. इन women को भी उसके अंदर include करना है और हिस्ट्री को हमको विमेन के पर्सपेक्टिव से भी देखना है, नॉट जस्ट फ्रॉम द मेल पर्सपेक्टिव, सो दैट वी हैव अ better understanding than having half knowledge, right? We always say little knowledge is dangerous. यानी हमें हर एक जिस लोग थे सोसाइटी में उनके हर एक पर्सपेक्टिव से देखना ज़रूरी है, right? Otherwise you will not have the correct, complete, proper history. Here we are on the last section of the chapter with the scholar Michel Foucault. He was a French historian of the 20th century. He was not in favor of arranging historical events in a chronological order. It's surprising, right? Because so far we have been talking about the chronology, but in case of say, he is not in favor of it. As some historians did emphasize about chronology, but he is not emphasizing. अरे ये क्या चक्कर है? According to him, explaining the transitions in history is more important, and archaeology also attempts to explain various transitions in the past. Okay, so he's saying instead of focusing on the chronology of the events, we need to understand the transitions. यानी ये इवेंट से वो इवेंट का ट्रांजिशन क्या था, किस तरह से. So basically it's talking about that interconnection, if you remember from the beginning of the chapter, right? So what transitions are more important for him. Okay, so according to him, explaining the history is more important with its transitions. Okay, and archaeology also attempts to explain various transitions. Archaeology does not strive to reach the ultimate historical truth. He called this method to explain the transitions in history as the archaeology of knowledge. Okay, so he's saying कि जो archaeology होती है, it's not that you'll get the ultimate historical truth. It's quite difficult, right? क्योंकि वो जो हुआ है काफी सालों पहले हुआ है and all of that. So he's saying it's important we try and understand कि ये एक event से दूसरे event पे हम कैसे पहुंचे. So explaining the transitions. और उनका ये जो आइडिया है एक्सप्लेनिंग द ट्रांजिशंस, उसको उन्होंने आर्कियोलॉजी ऑफ नॉलेज कहा है. ओके, सो दैट मेथड इज नोन एज आर्कियोलॉजी ऑफ knowledge. He subjected areas like psychological disorders, science of medicine, etc. to historical analysis. So apart from the various aspects that we talked about, is also including other elements like psychological disorders, science of medicine, कि जो अलग अलग दूसरे भी जो पहलू है लाइफ के, उसको भी वो इंक्लूड करने की बात कर रहे हैं. So these areas were not acknowledged or included in historical writing before. Okay, so he's proposing all these elements to be included. So again, a bigger holistic picture of a human life is important, right? So that's what he's saying here. So to arrange historical events in the chronological order was not something that he was passionate about, but for him explaining the transitions in history is more important, which is known as archaeology of knowledge, right? And he focused or he added some areas like psychological disorders, science of medicine, prison administration, etc. All these elements to the historical analysis. So this is what he was trying to focus on about archaeology of knowledge. So here we are, done with the whole chapter. Wasn't that easy? Do you say that happy history now? Yes, it's very simple. I'll come with more videos for all the chapters. Do keep watching them. Keep watching them again and again ताकि आपको वो याद रह जाए। बराबर से एक बार देख के छोड़ नहीं देना है, बार बार रिपीट करना है। आपको बीच में ब्रेक लेना है तो ब्रेक लीजिए, पर इसे बार बार देखिए क्योंकि इसमें आपके पास पिक्चर्स है, आपके पास वॉइस है, तो आपको इजीली ये सब चीज़ें याद रह जाएगी। ओके, so keep watching and I wish that you score really well in your exams. Thank you very much. Also, do remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe this channel so that we can reach out to more and more students, and more students can pass with great marks in history. See you soon in the other video.